Welcome to another episode of me reviewing highlights. As always, I have included direct chapter markers for the specific passages that I'm going to talk about, and as well as links to the specific books as well. So, with that, let's get started with the reviews today. Starting from the first one from Bittersweet. This word, loser, has been part of the English language for hundreds of years, but now it carried new meaning. In the 16th century, it simply meant one who suffers loss. But by 19th century America, according to Sandage, the loser acquired a stink. It became something you wear, while others were not. It came to mean, according to the online etymology dictionary, a hapless person, one who habitually fails to win. Another person's misfortunes should elicit compassion, as we saw in chapter 4. The very meaning of the word compassion is to suffer with someone. But the term loser now evoked not empathy but contempt. Loss became a condition to avoid by relentlessly cultivating the mindset and behaviors of a winner. The author is talking about this whole mindset of um, pursuing happiness, just happiness at the expense of every other emotion. And that's where this failure and loss comes in as well. And we talk about failure a lot of times, that how failure is necessary for success. And failure, by the word itself has this kind of negative connotation that, oh, you're a failure, like very much like this, how the author is describing this word, that you are a loser. And that's um, the connotation has become kind of contemptful, which means that nobody's feel to sorry nobody's supposed to feel sad, nobody's supposed to feel that they have lost something. Everybody is pursuing winning at all times, at all expense. And that has led to, as the author goes on to describe, a culture where people are becoming increasingly unhappy in pursuit of happiness at all costs. There is a lot that can be said over here. Of course, that's the whole subject of the book. The name itself is bittersweet, right? That the feeling, the very valuable feeling of being bittersweet. That's not the joyous, happy feeling. It's a bittersweet feeling, and it is a very powerful emotion. And we can't enjoy that. We can't enjoy is the wrong word over here. Obviously, we can't um, live in that emotion, experience that emotion for what it is, because of our obsession with happiness in this culture. So with that, let's move on to again bittersweet. It's not that pain equals art. It's that creativity has the power to look pain in the eye and to decide to turn it into something better. Again, this comes back to the word bittersweet itself. It's. I mean, you could think of it as an oxymoron, right? If you really think about it, it's not an oxymoron. It stands on its own. But with the culture of pursuing happiness, what I just described, um, what I just described, the with that culture, bittersweet does seem like an oxymoron. And it's not that, like the author says over here. It's not that. Art is supposed to be painful or something like that, but the true art, the art that actually moves you, that stares at something in you, that kind of longs for something, that kind of there is some kind of like an essential pain over there. And it doesn't have to be like severe pain or physical pain or a mental pain, or it could be like a reminiscence, nostalgic feeling. It could be a lot of things. So the author is talking about creativity over here. Creativity has the power to look pain in the eye and to make it something better, and that better is this feeling of bittersweet and everything that comes after it. Again, that's the subject of the book, like I said before. Moving on, kill it with fire. Anything over 4 nines is basically a lie. The more nines you're trying to guarantee, the more risk averse engineering teams will become, and the more they will avoid necessary improvements. Remember, to get 5 nines or more, they have only seconds to respond to incidents, and that's a lot of pressure. So 4 nines means 99.99% reliability or availability or whatever you're trying to measure. So basically, the author is saying that 99.99%, it's pretty high. You have to even decide if that is the what you want to target. But anything over that, it's basically lie, because you only have seconds to respond to incidents, to fix it. And um, if you want to be able to do that, the teams will naturally get more risk averse, because nobody wants to, if you're promising if there is an SLA for 99.999% reliability, you have, I'm forgetting the calculations. There is a website that kind of tells what is what, like, how much is 99.999%. It comes down to something like few minutes or few seconds every year of downtime. And that's completely, it's an overkill, right? So, and it leads to, kind of aiming for that, it kind of leads to risk averse engineering teams, like teams that don't improve at all. So, yeah, moving on. Deming's journey to profound knowledge. In fact, when I visited the Toyota Museum in Toyota City, because of course this is the story of Toyota Motor Company, the loom they have is in the lobby is not Sakichi's crowning glory. Quite the opposite. It's a broken loom, a failure. Because to Sakichi, that symbolized what his companies were truly about: kaizen, continuous improvement. This is not unlike Thomas Edison's famous quip about the light bulb. I have not failed 10,000 times. I have found 10,000 ways that won't work. I kind of felt that there were a lot of tongue twisters in this passage. Uh, It's straight away. The author is talking about so Toyota Motor Company, the in the history. Like, the author is kind of like going through the history. It started out as a Toyota loom company. It manufactured looms, and Sakichi Toyoda is the founder. So then it became, Toyota Motor Company after that. So the author is talking about continuous improvement over here. This Japanese philosophy of continuous improvement that's reflected in this word, that's described by this word kaizen. It's like a very common word right now in especially in software engineering circles. People talk about kaizen all the time. So yeah, it's again, it gets back to failure. We talked about failure in a different context a little earlier. So failure over here is that it's like, giving center stage to the failure itself. Not the loom that worked, but the loom that broke, and the loom that failed, and that is what inspired success in the subsequent looms. uh, I feel I don't really need to talk about it more. We have talked about failure and how it's a learning opportunity many many times in this. I was about to say podcast, but it's not really a podcast, is it? Yeah. So yeah, that's that, I think. Yeah, let's move on to kill it with fire. Very few rewrite plans takes the form of redesigning the system using the same language or merely fixing a well-defined structural issue. The goal of full rewrites is to restore ambiguity and therefore enthusiasm. They fail because the assumption that the old system can be used as a spec and be trusted to have diagnosed accurately and eliminated every risk is wrong. Yeah, this needs a little bit of thinking. I feel like I'm lost. Yeah, okay. So this book is about refactoring essentially, and refactoring rewrites, and it's kind of legacy software in short. Whatever you want to do with legacy software, and as software engineers, the first thing that we want to do with legacy software is to rewrite it, right? So the author is observing that very few rewrite plans is they really talk about redesigning the system using the same language. Um, and it's actually kind of a this sentence carries a lot under it. The author is kind of talking about the psychology of, or the the motivations behind a rewrite. It's the ambiguity in the system. It's a system that you don't understand, and if you don't understand it, it's not good, and you need to rewrite it. That's what goes on in our minds when we look at a legacy software. It might be completely valid, and we might have a picture that, okay, we understand everything about this software, but it's written in the wrong way. And we forget that the way it reached to this stage, it went through a lot of different compromises, a lot of different decision points and everything, and we forget that, and we just think, okay, oh, it's frozen in time set of requirements, and like we have an assessment that it's wrong, and now we're going to rewrite it in a different language, different technology, and that's the goal of this rewrite in our minds. We want to restore the enthusiasm. And how do we do that? Is by restoring the ambiguity, because now we have a picture that's kind of frozen in time, and that's not something that we can digest. So it's really a psychological study. This whole book is like that. In fact, that's why I found this so appealing, this particular book, that it's not just that, okay, how you go about refactoring, but the what goes on in in the team's psyche when they're approached with a refactoring project like this. Let's move on. Getting things done. The cycle of getting off track and getting back on again happens to almost everyone, particularly during the this first level of mastering the basics of the game. In my experience, it can easily take as long as 2 years to finally get the stage of practice fully integrated into one's life and work style and consistently maintained. I think this was actually very helpful for me because as I was reading this book and I felt that I've started to do things and the results were kind of uh, what's the word, mellow. I mean, I did feel improvement, but then it kind of felt like, okay, is that it really? That is that the all the improvement I can hope for? And this really aligned that, okay, this process, the cycle of getting off track and getting back on again, this practice of GTD, getting things done, this whole philosophy of writing everything down and everything that's there in GTD. I won't go into that right now. So, in author's experience, it can easily take as long as 2 years to finally get the stage of practice fully integrated into one's life. So, what this told me is that it's okay to get off track and get back on track repeatedly. It's not a failure. Like like many things, this is how the process works. The process of building a habit. That's how it works. So yeah, let's move on. Get it done. Notably, the planning fallacy prevailed. The average person missed their deadline whether they had set it early or late. Yet, merely expecting an assignment to be more difficult leads people to start and finish earlier. It's actually beneficial to expect greater difficulty when it incentivizes you to do your best and start doing so immediately. So the author is saying over here that what they found, various studies and stuff, that the planning fallacy, it kind of it held its ground, it prevailed. That no matter what you plan, you're always going to be late. You can say that, okay, you have 10 months to complete a project, you will be late. You will say 1 month to complete a project, you'll be late. Like they say in a funny way, the deadline is the strongest motivator. So until you get to the deadline, you'll not be motivated. But what made a difference was thinking how difficult a task was going to be. And I do reflect on it. If I think that, okay, this task is easy, should probably take half an hour, it ends up being like a 2 week project or more. And I'm in fact like working on something just like that. It's funny. It's almost funny, painfully funny that I'm working on something. Started with something like dot files and ended up somewhere else. Anyway, that's not the point here. So the takeaway here is it's actually beneficial to expect greater difficulty when it incentivizes you to do your best and then start and finish early. Let's move on. The song of significance. The fallacy of the MBA is that a brilliant memo presented via PowerPoint is enough to make change happen. But culture beats strategy every time. In resilient organizations, culture drives transformation. In rigid ones, it inhibits it. If we care about the work, we'll need to focus on the culture. Again, I think I don't really need to say anything. Just reading it out is enough because this book is written in that style anyway. Going on. Range. Lateral thinking is a term coined in the 1960s for the reimagining of information in new contexts, including the drawing together of seemingly disparate concepts or domains that can give. I lost the flow. Where did I stop? Lateral thinking is a term coined in the 1960s for the reimagining of information in new contexts, including the drawing together of seemingly disparate concepts or domains that can give old ideas new uses. By with her technology, Yokoi meant tech that was old enough to be extremely well understood and easily available. So it didn't require a specialist's knowledge. The heart of his philosophy was putting cheap, simple technology to use in ways no one else considered. I'm forgetting the context behind it. So, I mean, on the surface of it, it feels like, okay, this is a description of lateral thinking, but and I think this almost points to this concept of boring technology that we have. Technology that is robust, that is well understood, and like I mean, compared to the cutting edge technology, boring technology is much more suitable to build robust products. But Yeah, I think, like, on that level that's fine, but I'm missing the context of, uh, like, who is Yokoi, and what did they do. Anyway, let's move on to hidden potential. Beating yourself up doesn't make you stronger, it leaves you bruised. Being kind to yourself isn't about ignoring your weaknesses, it's about giving yourself permission to learn from your disappointments. We grow by embracing our shortcomings, not by punishing them. Make it feel wrong. So, uh, this being kind to ourselves, it's always a tricky concept to understand, at least for me, um, because that's what it felt like to me for a long time, that okay, being kind to ourselves meant that okay, we ignore our weaknesses, we just kind of like forget about it, and just live your life and forget about the weaknesses and just focus on your strengths and everything. But that's not quite what it is, right? And like, on the other hand, beating yourself up doesn't make you stronger. So what is being kind to ourselves? It's accepting that whatever disappointments are coming your way, or whatever failures you're coming your way, you treat that as a learning opportunity, giving yourself the permission to learn. Being kind to yourself, that you think of those failures as learning opportunities instead. And then that's what the author means by make it feel wrong, that it's not about feeling wrong and beating up yourself, but it's about feeling wrong, and feeling wrong about failure, and then learning from it. So that's, I think, the end of it, and the end of all the highlights for today. And yeah, I think, except for the disruption in the between, it was, like, a lot of the highlights, they were all packed, most of them. And so I think it was a good, shall I call it an episode again? So yeah, with that, I'll call it a day. Thank you.